Charlie Munger once said, "Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcomes." And those words have never been more true than in the world of financial advice. In the United States, there's about 834,000 financial professionals. And only about 5 to 12% of those financial professionals are fee-only fiduciary advisors. These are the people who are legally required to put your interests first all the time. Everyone else, they're playing by a different set of rules with a different set of incentives, and that directly impacts your wallet. I'm Terrell Higgins, and in a world filled with information, what you're really looking for is transformation. And today, we're going to be transforming the way you think about financial advisors. We're going to break down how financial advisors get compensated, why that compensation structure matters for the type of advice that you're actually going to get from them, and how you can select the best type of financial advisor for your situation. Let's get into it. So let's start with the rules of the game. So most financial advisors fall into two main categories. Those that are operating under the regulation best interests, so Reg BI, and those who are operating under the fiduciary standard. And to understand where this regulatory best interest came from, we have to go back to before 2020. So before 2020, they had something called the suitability standard, which means that any investment that they recommended for you just had to be appropriate for you. So if a manager knew that if he offered you a product, he would get a 6% commission, that was fine, even if he knew that there was an identical product that was much cheaper for you, because that 6% product was suitable. It's like if you went to a restaurant and the waiter recommended the most expensive bottle of wine because he knew it was going to boost his tip. This was a problem. So the SEC tried to clean up this suitability standard situation by introducing regulation best interests in 2020. And Reg BI requires brokers to act in your best interest at the time that they're making recommendations. They have to disclose any conflicts of interest that they might have, and they have to avoid putting their interests ahead of yours. And all that sounds great, right? But the catch is their best interest requirements only apply at the time they're making the recommendations. Once they complete the sale of that product or service, their duty to you ends. So just because something is in your best interest today, they don't have any requirement to verify that it's still in your best interest tomorrow. Under the old suitability standard, it was very clear that it was hurting client outcomes. But since Reg BI has been implemented, there have been no post-implementation studies to really show that it's reduced client harm or improve financial results. And there's actually a few lawsuits that have been brought against Reg BI to try and make a more sweeping reform to better protect clients. So the only real regulatory enforcement of Reg BI has been in the most egregious of cases. So in 2022, when Western International Securities was essentially pushing their clients into a Ponzi scheme involving bonds, Reg BI did step in and protect the consumer. But on some of those more marginal cases where they might be pushing you into funds with higher expense ratios or commission-based products, there really hasn't been much enforcement on that end. So the jury is still out whether Reg BI has actually moved the needle on protecting consumers and improving financial outcomes compared to the old suitability standard. Then there are registered investment advisors, RIAs. These are the true fiduciaries. They are legally required to put your best interests first all the time. They have to minimize or disclose any conflicts of interest, and they have to provide ongoing monitoring and care of any financial advice that they provide you. Think of it like this. Under Reg BI, they have to do what's best for you right now. And under a fiduciary, they have to do what's best for you always. And here's where it gets tricky. Many financial advisors, 43% of financial advisors, are actually dually registered under Reg BI and as a fiduciary, meaning that depending on what service they're providing you will depend whether it's fiduciary or Reg BI. 1 minute they could be providing you fiduciary advice, and the next minute they're not. And this is not inherently bad, but it is extremely confusing. So whenever you sit down with someone who's dually registered, you need to be very clear about which hat they're wearing when they give you financial advice. How an advisor gets paid tells you everything you need to know about their incentives. And there's 3 main ways this can be structured. So you have fee-only advisors. So that means that they only get paid by you. So there are no commissions, there's no third-party kickbacks. All their payment is coming from you in the form of an hourly rate, some sort of flat fee, or a percentage of assets under management, generally 0.5 to 1.5% of assets under management annually. And you know that there's going to be minimal conflicts of interest here. This is like paying for the expertise of a doctor. You're getting all the expertise with none of the sales pitch. Then you have fee-based advisors. And this one is confusing by design. It sounds a lot like fee only, but it is not the same. These fee-based advisors can actually charge fees and earn commissions on some products, especially insurance or annuities. So this doesn't make them inherently bad, but that does mean you need to keep your eyes open if they're pushing you into mutual fund products or annuity products that actually have hefty commission kickbacks for them. Then you have commission-only advisors. And commission-only advisors only get paid when they sell you a product. This could be insurance, an annuity, mutual funds with a front-end load, structured notes, you name it. And the risk here is clear. If they don't sell, they don't eat. And this doesn't make them villains, but it does mean you need to stay alert. You need to always ask the advisor, how are you getting paid and by whom? And you can check this on BrokerCheck or on the form ADV that the financial advisor can provide to you. Here's a fun fact. Before 1975, your financial advisor probably wasn't called that at all. They were stockbrokers or insurance agents, but when commissions started to get deregulated, the financial industry decided to rebrand. And financial advisor became the new trust me title of choice. And they were calling themselves advisors, whether they were upholding a fiduciary standard or not. So the reality is, just because someone says they're a financial advisor doesn't mean that they have any legal obligation to adhere to a fiduciary standard. It's like someone calling themselves a chef. They could have a Michelin star, or they could just own an air fryer. You have to do your due diligence. And I'll leave some resources down in the comments below for you guys to use to check whether your financial advisor is a true fiduciary. And you can request the Form ADV Part 2 from your advisor to see how they are getting compensated. So let's talk about the big boys, the major wirehouses. Merrill, Morgan Stanley, UBS, Wells Fargo, all those big institutions that are dominating the financial industry, and you see advertising Sunday afternoon while you're watching football. These folks have very deep resources, tons of research, integrated banking and lending practices, and with all those benefits, the trade-offs are very real because financial advisors at these major institutions are often dually registered as Reg BI and fiduciaries. So, one moment they could be acting under a fiduciary standard, and the next they could be selling proprietary products to generate commissions for their firm. This doesn't make them inherently bad, but it does mean you need to ask questions because these big businesses generate 97% of their revenue from these commission-based products and assets under management, not necessarily fees from actual financial advice. So let's put some numbers to this. So if you end up buying a front-end loaded mutual fund, one of these heavy commission products, let's assume the front-end load was 5.75%. So what that means is if you invested $100,000, right off the top, you're going to lose $5,750. And then you stack in the higher expense ratios that are associated with these type products, a 1 to 2% expense ratio, and you let that compound over 30 years, assuming you get about market returns of 8%. If you compare the returns of that investment to a low-cost index fund, you have about $240,000 less than using the cheaper product. So the same thing can happen with advisory fees. So imagine we're investing $500,000 for 20 years. Let's compare two different advisors. So the first advisor is charging you 1.5% in fees every year. Across that 20 years, that adds up to $230,000 in fees. And then you compare that to a cheaper advisor who's only charging 0.5% in fees. He only charged you $85,000 in fees. That's a difference of $145,000. That's money that you could have had working in the market and compounding to generate more wealth for you. Now, a good advisor can earn that fee if they're providing tax planning and estate planning and behavioral coaching. That 1 to 3% difference they can easily make up for in the services that they're providing you. So you really can't just compare fee to fee. You need to be comparing financial outcome to financial outcome. So at some point, you're going to have to make a choice. How are you actually going to manage your finances? And there's really 5 real options. And the first one is the do-it-yourself option. And this is the one that most people start with. And it's great when your finances are simple or when you're first getting started, or if you actually like engaging with managing your money, budgeting, and thinking through all these financial decisions. There's some amazing financial communities out there, amazing resources to think through your financial choices, like my YouTube channel, there's different Reddit forums, and there's really awesome tools that you can use as well. So Bolden is one of my favorite planning tools. And if you're trying to look forward to how you're going to structure your retirement, and if you're going to have enough money to retire, this tool is all the functionality that you would get from sitting down with a professional advisor. And if you're doing it yourself, you might as well do it the right way. I'll leave a link down below to Bolden if you want to try it out. The next way is a robo-advisor. So this is more automation. You don't have to be as hands-on in all the different decisions. It's going to auto rebalance for you, but it's not going to provide you any of the emotional coaching that you might need. So a lot of times as a DIY investor, your worst enemy is yourself. You won't be able to control your emotions in a market downturn. And most people overstate the amount of risk that they're actually comfortable with in their retirement account. And the DIY option and the robo-advisor option are not going to help you with the emotional piece of investing. The third option is a fee-only fiduciary. And if your life starts to get more complicated, this is who you want. So if you're a business owner, a high income earner, have a high net worth, or you're a retiree or very close into retirement, these folks can help you put together a holistic plan that takes into account all of your finances. They'll assemble all the pieces, parts for tax planning, estate planning, and help you navigate some of the most complex life decisions. You're going to pay more upfront, but you're going to get more value long term. This is the comprehensive option if you have all those estate planning, tax planning, and more complex financial problems. The next one is a commission only or a dually registered advisor. And these folks would be ideal if you're looking for a specific product or service, maybe insurance or an annuity. They're not the bad guy. You just have to know what you're getting yourself into and understand where their incentives lie. So the fifth option is a hybrid approach. So you do it yourself for all your core investing and retirement accounts, and then you seek out a professional fee-only advisor for specific projects. So maybe an annual checkup or navigating major life transitions. Maybe you need to do some tax planning for those Roth conversions early in retirement. Maybe you need to help devising a retirement drawdown strategy of how you're actually going to pull money out of your retirement accounts. You keep your costs low because you do most of the work yourself, and you get that professional help for where it matters the most. It's the best of both worlds. Here's the truth. Most advisors are not villains. They're just playing by a set of incentives that are placed in front of them. Only 5 to 12% are true fee-only fiduciaries, but that doesn't mean that the rest can't add value. That just means that you need to understand their incentives on how they're getting paid and where the conflicts might be. Because a small difference in fees could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket or someone else's. So take the time, ask the right questions, and think of Charlie Munger's famous words. Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcomes. And if today's video gave you a clear framework for thinking about getting a financial advisor, like and subscribe to the channel. Share the video with someone else because I'll be transforming your finances every single week. And I'll leave it to the YouTube algo to recommend the next video you should watch in my back catalog. Keep getting 1% better every day, and I'll catch you in the next video.